All right, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, May 15th at 9 a.m. Garth, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have Steve Gilday from the Law Enforcement Chaplains here to give our morning prayer.
Well, good morning. Would you join me in prayer? A good and wonderful God, your love endures forever. This court, Lord, is your court. For you, God, gave to man your commandments and laws for us to live by, that we may have justice and peace in our land. This court's authority is also given to us by you. As your word declares, all authority is established by God. As you remind us to pray for all those in authority, that their rulings and judgments would allow us to live in peace. We ask, Lord, that you would guide the hearts and the minds of those given such authority, to be guided, as your word also says, you guide the thoughts of the kings as the rivers of the land. Thank you, Father, for this new day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I'll see you all in a year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you next May. All right, I have one announced public comment, and so we'll go through that. Come on up, sir. Steve, and then after that, we'll see if there's anybody online that wants to weigh in on anything. So about the county or about the animal shelter. It is a separate entity from the county, but yeah.
Well, good morning. I'm Steve Nagorski, live in Brasada, retired resident there. Yeah, a few of us know how to find our way to Prineville.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I'd like to talk about just a little bit this morning. And I am speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for any organization that I belong to. So this county is got a lot of great facilities. It's got a new courthouse that's going to be in operation soon. It's got a relatively new jail that I've toured. Yes, I've just toured it. And you've got an extension to your museum. And then on top of that, you've got a fairly 1980s dilapidated temporary building, which is a private facility, which functions as essentially the county animal shelter. So I'm speaking basically and hoping for your support. And I know you do support it in some ways, but in my estimation, not adequately. So I have, right now they're trying to fund, in addition to the dog side, I have personally funded 2 of the new dog kennels. And I'm hoping that the county would consider funding the rest. So there's at least 24, I'm guessing, more that need to be funded. And then if there's no more money that you can supply, that I would hope that at least you would go there and tour the facility and see the situation as it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I've been up there quite a bit. I agree with you. It needs to definitely see some improvement. I mean, I think we can sit down and with the people and talk to them. You know, that seems like that would be a pretty tall order. But we did also just recently, what did we increase it by?
500 a month.
500 a
Yeah.
month, and we were also already paying.
Yeah, we were already paying, and then they asked for an increase and we passed that unanimously. So
yeah.
we do give some financial support.
Have any of you been over there recently?
I was
I
there
haven't ever been. I'm
probably
sorry.
2 months ago with my daughter. We were looking at the dog.
Did you get a chance to tour the rest of the whole facility, or?
No, they wouldn't let us in the back last time, so I'll have to go back and talk them into letting me go back there. But I have been in the past. Has it changed a lot?
It's really, they're stressed, especially since post COVID. Everybody, you know, got a dog for COVID, and then after COVID, it's like I know I'm
Sending them back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll make the trek up there and grab one of my kids and go look at it for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Steve.
Anyone in the room want to see anybody? Well, you got a public comment? Oh, He seemed very excited. I was very intrigued to hear what Bill, or what, Will had to say.
Well, you have to say something now.
I will go ahead and say something right now, just regarding the agenda. Really
Yeah.
quickly, item number 6 has been pulled.
Okay.
I just think we need to, if anybody wants to talk about it, I think because it's on the agenda, we need to allow them to do that, but then is that changed to the agenda today?
Perfect.
Just heads up on that. Thank you.
Anybody on the phone have anything to say?
Well, they don't all raise their hand at once, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, any changes on the consent agenda? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
And I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Pardon me, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay. Kara? Is that right? Okay, which one?
My name's Kira Marchant. Good morning. I'm with AKS Engineering and I have phase 5 of Ochoco Point, a Polish Homes community plat map here to be signed and reviewed. The surveyor has reviewed it and signed it. The construction of the streets and infrastructure is substantially complete. Phase 5 includes 28 lots for future single-family homes. And there are additional phases in the future. This just happens to be phase 5.
Okay, any questions?
Nope. She brought the plat up.
Yeah, so
Okay.
are you in a big hurry today? Do you want us to pause real quick and sign it for you so you can get out of here?
Up.
We're happy to do that. We understand you have,
I
Life.
mean, if that works for you, that's great. If not, I'm happy to stay.
yeah, we have 2 public hearings. It might be worth
Okay.
pause. Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Well, I guess I'm making, I make a motion to sign the plat map for Ochoco Point Phase 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll let you go the farthest and then I'll go. Let me get out of your guys' way. Need those sticky notes, you know.
The date.
It is the 15th today.
We'll make sure to get out, get your hunting licenses.
Yeah.
Last day.
And there's 2 pages, 2 copies.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna do a second. Does this need to dry or you think it's put, okay, thank you. Maybe I don't want to smear it. Thank you. Okay.
You'd think after all this time, they'd come up with a better system.
Yeah. Yeah, but that paper has a sheen to it, so. It's fine. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Here, like I say,
Okay.
I don't wanna mess with, I don't wanna be the smear.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Brad?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Brad Haynes, Road Superintendent, Crook County. I'm here today to ask for approval to purchase 1,500 tons of asphalt for patching repairs on Reservoir Road, a total price of $85,500. I have three competitor bids, and that is the lowest bid that we come up with.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Tri-County paving, huh?
County
He
paving.
was just at my house on Saturday.
Oh, Tri-County?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the 2024 in-house asphalt paving purchase of 1,500 ton. Is that what you said? Yeah, 1,500 ton.
From Tri-County paving, I
From
second.
Tri-County paving. Yes, sorry.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
All right, Christina?
I'm online, commissioners. Good morning.
Ooh,
This request is our annual renewal of our debt book software. This software is what allows us to stay compliant with GASB 87 and GASB 96, and that is that we report our leases as well as our software subscriptions. And it also has a debt module that helps us track our debt and payments, as well as disclosure requirements for all of those items that have to go in our annual financials. We weren't able to get as much of a discount as Eric was able to procure for us last year, but we did. Stephen was able to have them remove the 5% increase they were suggesting, and the payment this year would be $13,000.
sounds good to me. I'd entertain a motion.
Your turn.
I'll make a motion to approve the debt book software. In the amount of 13,000.
And I will second that motion. Sorry, Christina.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Christina.
All right, Andy?
And good morning, Commissioners. Andy Parks. You have before you this compensation study update and the recommendations that are in front of you are the adopt the job measurement system, adopt the job classification and listing, adopt the recommended salary structure, and adopt the implementation plan. The job measurement system is detailed in Appendix B. Job classification and listing is in Appendix D. And the master salary schedule is Appendix C, although there will be an amended Schedule C for the sheriff's office, as we've discussed previously, for a 9-step plan, 9-step salary structure. The implementation plan went over last week. I understand there's some concerns with that, as well as continued with some of the job title discussion. Just a reminder that the implementation of this at this point does not include job titles. The job titles would be something that would be done with the departments and HR over, going forward. With respect to an implementation of May 1, I've checked and that is possible. It will require, some overtime by staff to be able to accomplish that. I have discussed with staff the ability to bifurcate that so that the sheriff's office, for example, since they've got a 9-step salary schedule could go June 1, which would break up that work a little bit and ease the implementation. I believe, one of the concerns of not moving forward in a timely fashion is without a date. I'm not sure what staff is targeting and what employees can expect. So if there's concerns about moving forward with the implementation for whatever reason, I would suggest that you target a date so that staff can work towards that date. I'm glad to address any questions you may have.
Susie?
Do you have any questions at all?
Okay.
Do you want?
What's that?
I'm happy to provide just a little more
Sure, yeah.
context.
would
I
love to
agree
hear.
with Andy that it's important to kind of move forward with the schedule. If you're looking to move forward with approving the schedule today, I would definitely encourage consideration of a date certain for implementation. I think to ensure an opportunity for all department heads to be consulted by finance and to make sure we get a fair opportunity to implement this as accurately as it should be. Some time is warranted, so I would encourage probably a June 1st implementation date. And this is just based on information I've just gathered over the last couple of days. This is something I've had an opportunity to discuss with all department heads. But based on some concerns I've heard both at the department head meeting last week and then some follow-up conversations I've had early this week, I think June 1st would be fair if the board feels that May 1st is not realistic.
I have a question for you, Will. Because our fiscal year is the end of July 1st, and that's when the COLA would go in and stuff, it has been indicated to me by individuals that it would be less staff work. I don't know how better to say it. Less staff work if we just did an implementation on July 1st. You're talking about June 1st, which I'm fine with. But I have been indicated that July 1st would be a more fitting time because that's when they're in the books and that's when the changes could be made. What are your thoughts on a July 1st implementation?
I haven't had any conversations in regard to how the COLA impacts or kind of helps the process whether or not doing it at the same time as the COLA would benefit the implementation process. So I don't have any thoughts on that. I mean, it does make some sense, if you're just looking at a calendar to have it kick off with the start of the new fiscal year, I suppose, but I don't know that there's good reasons from an implementation standpoint to do that. I think that would be a great question. I don't know if Christina has any opinions on whether or not the COLA.
Okay. And Christina's
impact?
on. So Christina, what are your thoughts? Would it be better for June 1st or a July 1st as far as your staff?
So I just want to make sure everyone knows we're committed to making sure it gets done with whatever date we're given. But it does have implications outside of just my staff. It's kind of communication as well. As far as since we partner with HR to make sure this information gets into the computer correctly. And if it is part of the cost of living increase that's done at the beginning of the year, there's a potential that we're only touching the salary schedule once. However, a cost of living increase is significantly easier to do than the salary schedule change in our software. Basically, we tell it to increase by the percentage of the COLA on which positions are getting the increase. So would it be easier? Possibly. But I do want to make sure that we can make it work whichever way we want to do it. So
That wasn't really an answer, Christina.
well, I know, but I realize I want to be sensitive to this is we've not had great communication around when this is happening and what's happening, and that was kind of clear at the department head meeting. So would it be easier to do July 1st? Yes. However, I think there needs to be some more communication about what's actually happening, and this is part of that. So I want to say, is it easier July 1st? Yes. Can we do it before then? Yes. It would potentially duplicate a little bit of work, but the salary schedule itself is the heavier lift rather than that cost of living adjustment.
You are looking at it as May 15th right now. And I would like HR and finance and Will to go through this again and make sure that we're putting forth a document that everyone is in accordance with. So you're looking at basically adding 30 days or not adding 30 days. And that's where I'm kind of coming from. Is it a motion for a June 1st or a July 1st? It's basically up to you. You know the concerns, you've had them voiced to you. It's up to you guys as what you feel more comfortable with. I'm willing to go either way, but I want it from both of you, and HR will figure that out. So
Yeah,
give me some guidance here. I'm asking.
I totally agree. And I'm comfortable with the either date, but I want to make sure you guys have enough time with all the other things you're doing to be able to do it right and not slide into home and slap it on the desk.
30 days would be tremendously helpful to be able to review with department heads and make sure we know where everybody is at in an individual basis, not just a position basis, as well as in a department chunk. Either way, we have a short period of time to get it in the system with the way our payroll system works. And that's not going to change. It'll still be that crunch, but I think at 30 days would give us an additional amount of time to make sure we can implement it appropriately and correctly.
So
and
if
have time to review it.
we went for June 15th, I'm just dividing, I don't know if it's 30, 31 days. But if we went June 15th, that gives you adequate time, and then coming in July 1st and adding COLA is not that big a deal. Is that kind of what I'm getting from you?
Yeah, so to clarify, June 15th would mean it would be effective for the June 1st payroll or for the June 15th payroll.
Again, I'm asking your guidance here.
Okay, so if we, sorry.
No, go ahead, Christina.
So if we just push it out 30 days, and that would mean it would be effective June 1st. Is kind of what I'm hearing.
I'm asking you, basically, you say you need 30 days. Is it better for us to have an implementation date of June 1st, and then we give you till June 15th? Or like I say, I'm asking your guidance because you know what your challenges are. Will knows what the challenges are. HR knows. So
And that's just what I wanted to clarify. So we pay 2 weeks behind. So if it's implemented on June 1st for the paycheck that gets paid June 15th, it would be getting paid on June 30th. And so we would be implementing it into the system from June 15th to June 24th about is the period we'd have to input into the system. So I think that would give us time to review everything with the department heads to meet that deadline of June 16th or so, which is when we have to have it started going into the computer.
Hey, Chris, so just, I know you've already touched on this, but just to clarify, we would see that as employees, we would see that on for our June 1st pay period. So when we get paid on June 30th, thereabouts, for the pay period, June 1st to June 15th, we would see that adjustment for that pay period.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you saying June? Or You
June,
mean July?
June.
So if you do it on June 15th, then it goes back to the 1st?
yes, because you're 2 weeks behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because we pay 2 weeks
Oh,
behind.
oh, oh.
Again,
Okay,
is that adequate time is all I'm asking, because we're talking about 2 weeks here. You know, is it July 1st or June 15th? I'm wanting you two to be, and HR to be comfortable. That's my question.
So Christina, you're free to throw things at me through Zoom if that's possible, but I'm going to stick with
Packs a punch.
I'm going to stick with the June 1st recommendation. It sounds like there's a minor benefit maybe to doing it on July 1st in terms of the COLA adjustment. But it sounds like the COLA adjustment's much easier on the finance department in terms of making those changes. I think just to June 1st still gives finance, HR, all the department heads time to get together, have those conversations, and make sure we have a solid product to roll out starting
Okay.
June 1st. So Christina, if you have strong feelings, feel free to kind of correct me.
I think
don't
that
wanna-
sounds great. And don't worry, I'm not going to throw stuff through Zoom at you. So I think that that works. Any additional time, we're always happy to have. And I think it will be important to have the conversations that need to be had with department heads and review that on an individual basis. If that's how the or the Board of Commissioners wants to move forward.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
okay, then I'm willing to make a motion that, so would the term be to implement the compensation study? Or to just pass the compensation? Is that, basically, Eric, help me, how do we do this? You've heard the conversation. So what would be the best way to make a motion on this?
What I think I heard was that there was going to be conversation among the departments regarding the effect of this and see if there would be any sort of changes that they would.
No, I think sorry, Eric, I think I understand maybe there's a little bit of confusion in that regard, but I think what we would be doing now is passing the salary, a motion to pass the salary schedule. And Andy, I think you're still online, so help clarify kind of what the motion should be, but I think we want to pass the compensation study. The conversations with the department heads are really just over kind of the details of each position.
Right, yeah, I would recommend that the motion be to adopt the job measurement system, adopt the job classifications and listing, adopt the recommended salary structure, and adopt the implementation plan to be effective on June 1. With an amendment to the salary structure that the sheriff's office staff will be a 9-step structure rather than a 13-step structure.
Is that good for you, Christina?
I think the only thing I would add was the recommended differential between sergeant and lieutenant pay that was included on in Vance's implementation slides. I don't remember which slide that was.
With the
Yeah,
It looks
that's
like item F.
to pass to pass his recommendation, is that what you're saying, Christina? Christina, did you hear, to go
Yeah,
ahead
yeah.
and pass? And tell me again what it is for the sheriff, the lieutenant and sergeant, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's to provide a review mechanism to maintain the pay differential between sergeant and lieutenant positions.
Okay. Okay,
And the ranges that Vance listed were a market range of 21 to 24% with a review of the salary schedule if that range dips to 18% or below.
okay, well, that's maybe more. Okay, back with you, Andy. So it was job, you had about 4 titles you did after job. So what were the 4 different things that you said?
Adopt the job MES.
The jobs, excuse me, what word?
It's job MES. This is on page 53 of the report, I believe. Adopt the job MES. It's a trademark system. Adopt the job classifications and listing.
Listing, okay.
Adopt the recommended salary structure with the sheriff's office with
As
a
the
9-step.
I got that. I've got that written down. I just wasn't, okay.
Adopt the implementation plan to be effective June 1. And to review the plan, review the compensation plan, should the range between the lieutenant and sergeant decrease to 18% or less.
Okay.
So does that, Christina, give you the opportunity to work with Will and the departments and put the specific people on and make sure we're on track with all that?
Yeah, we'll go on an individual basis and meet with department heads, and they can meet with their individual staff to review where this shakes out for everybody. And then we had talked during the department head meeting about having a mechanism that was fair for any items that there may be a disagreement on. And we're still kind of deciding what the best way to do that is with HR.
And then also, I think I've brought this up in the past, the titles have been really unpopular. We're not changing those titles right now. That'll be an
Correct.
opportunity that, while you guys work with people, we can clean some of that stuff up.
Yep, for right now, the plan is to keep current titles.
Perfect.
Okay, so everybody here, we're all kind of in accordance with what Andy has presented as our motion. And we're just basically, we're just gonna change to June 1st. Everybody's on board with that. And is there any other amendment besides obviously the sheriff's thing and the sergeant lieutenant? If it drops below 18% is, okay, so everybody, we're good on that. So now, did you write a motion, Eric, or I wrote all this down, or I can attempt one?
So what I think I heard was that the motion today would be to approve the salary structure with the Crook County Sheriff's Office to be adjusted to 9 steps effective
June.
today, or is it?
June 1st.
So there will be.
Everything's
so
June 1st.
Everything will be June 1st, okay. So adopt a salary structure with the Crook County Sheriff's Office to be adjusted to 9 steps. Adopt the implementation plan, adopt the job med system. To review the plan, if the range is between the sergeant and lieutenant, decrease to 18% or less. And effective July or June 1.
With the addition of, Andy said the classification listing was another addition in there, and that's everything I've written down. Is that sound good, Andy?
Yes.
Okay, then that, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right, public hearing ordinance 343 regarding purchasing and procurement rules and declaring an emergency, second reading.
So commissioners, for this, what I might suggest is first a motion to read by title only, assuming that's approved, then I can give a brief staff report and then you can open up the public hearing.
And to entertain a motion?
So moved, to read by title only.
Second.
This is an ordinance amending, oh, sorry, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is an ordinance amending chapter 312 of the Crook County Code regarding purchasing and procurement rules and declaring an emergency.
Commissioners, under Oregon law, local governments are able to adopt their own purchasing and procurement rules within certain parameters, and Crook County has done so. County's purchasing rules are contained in Chapter 312 of the Crook County Code, and a number of those provisions have developed to the point where they could benefit from some revisions. Part of that is because there have been changes in state law, which would allow the county to make adjustments to its local law. Some of them are simply to correct some rather awkward phrasing. So for instance, there's a section in there that says personal services contracts are not public contracts. I think what was intended by that statement when it was adopted is that personal services contracts may not necessarily be required to go through a competitive process. But by the black letter of state law, personal services are public contracts. And so the county's code needs some polishing up in that regard. The third change is, the third type of change
I guess I should say, would be suggestions on how to implement new rules to increase efficiencies in the county's operations. So at the last reading, there was discussion around the approval of grants. And what I have drafted in here is a system that I might call negative consent. So if a county department head receives a grant agreement, he or she would present it to the county manager and the three commissioners. And the three commissioners and the county manager would have 7 calendar days in which to review it to decide whether they want to impose a requirement that this grant be discussed at a future meeting. And that is regardless of the dollar value of the grant. In particular, it would require the department head to present a report to those individuals describing certain conditions, like, for instance, if there's matching funds, or if there needs to be some sort of public statement that the county makes, or a public statement that the county is forbidden from making as a condition of receiving the grant. With that, I'm happy to answer any sort of questions for you. This drafting process has involved all of the department heads. Again, I'd like to thank the IT department for finding a way to set up a method by which one document can be worked on with all department heads, which was a big help with version control. If you do not have any other questions, what I might suggest then is to open the public hearing. If this is approved after the second reading, then the emergency clause would have the effect, have the ordinance go into effect immediately. So what we would do then is send a note out to the department heads so they're aware, and also update the county's online code as swiftly as possible. There will be some small costs incurred for that through the county's publisher, Code Publishing, but we believe we have adequate resources currently budgeted for that.
Great. I will open a public hearing.
Don't all rush up to the microphone at one time.
Well, you never know. There could be people on Zoom that are very. Steve, did you come for this also, or just the animal shelter? Just all right, we'll close the public hearing unless. All right, so I would entertain a motion.
Go ahead. My computer died. I don't have anything.
Well, now that's a fine
Can't
excuse.
get the internet.
Okay, so, Eric, help me with this. How would you like the motion to read? And then I know I will be good.
So I might suggest a motion to approve ordinance 343.
Okay, that was what I was gonna say. So, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we go to ordinance
Next.
344.
Will?
I'm gonna need something. All IT, ask them if they wanna see if they can get on it and fix it.
Want your phone?
I set my computer and everything and it's not coming up.
I'll give you mine real quick.
I can use. My
Or
eyes aren't as good
We
as
can
yours.
switch. We can.
I can
switch-
read it.
I
This
can
is pretty
switch
small.
I can
here.
read it for you and tell you what it says. Well,
Good morning again. I am here in regard to ordinance 344, which is a ordinance that will update portions of Title 18, which is our zoning ordinance. I am going to need Eric's help with something because Exhibit B to the ordinance, which is the farm brewery provisions, I needed to update the section heading numbers and letters, and to comply with our first and second reading requirements, those need to be read into the record. So Eric, process wise, is it best if I just kind of proceed with my staff report right now, and then we do that kind of before the public hearing is opened, or should we read those changes now?
Yeah, good question. So I don't think it's critical if the staff report happens first and then the changes are read aloud, or the changes are read aloud and then the staff report. I would suggest the changes be read aloud before the public hearing is opened. So just procedurally, so we get it on the record, what I might suggest first is a motion to read by title only. Then Will can give a staff report, the changes, which, as Will said, are extremely modest. They are changing the numbers of the code provisions, but not the text. Can be read aloud, and then open a public hearing.
I make a motion to read by title only.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
What?
Oh, sorry. Go, I read it.
I would like to say something. Is that where you were?
I was voting. I was ready.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see. This is an ordinance amending Title 18 of the Crook County Code, adopting additional procedure, clarity, streamlining application process, and expanding options for local residents and declaring an emergency.
Okay, now Eric, do I read the changes?
So I don't think it matters if you have the staff report first and then read the changes.
Let's just read the changes so I can get that out of the way since I have them up in front of me right now and I don't want to forget to come back to it. So again, just with the wording, so these are just heading changes. So Eric, you had an email you sent me that suggested some language I use for reading this efficiently. Do you recall what you recommended?
Yeah, so for instance, if there's a change in a paragraph, so instead of it now reading, subparagraph 7A, it now reads 7.1, I think we would just say, section 18.124, 1.110, subsection 7 used to have a subsection 1, that's now a subsection 1, subsection 8, something to that effect.
Okay. I'm gonna give this an attempt because it's a little bit,
Which some of it is small cap, large.
I
cap.
know.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
not
kinda-
quite sure how I'm gonna do this.
This
So
is a tough one. I
um,
agree.
So subsection 2, the first sentence is now preceded with subsection A, so it's subsection 2A, and then it starts a farm brewery, ... Subsection, formerly subsection 2, lowercase a is now subsection 2, lowercase a, uppercase a. Similarly, subsection 2B, lowercase b is formerly lowercase b is now subsection 2, lowercase a, uppercase b. Same with the next section, it's now 2, lowercase a, uppercase c, and then I guess numeral, how do you say that? 1, or is that I?
I would say
Numeral 1. Now the next line is uppercase C, numeral 2. Next line is C, numeral 3. And the following line is C, numeral 4. And then still in section 2, section 2D, what was formerly 2D is now section 2, lowercase b. Okay.
Got it, Will.
So get comfortable. Subsection 3, what was subsection 3, lowercase b, numeral 1, and then there's a whole series down to numeral 8. Those have all been changed to subsection 3, b, lowercase a, lowercase b, lowercase c, lowercase d, lowercase e, lowercase f, lowercase g, lowercase h. The numerals 1 through 8 have been deleted. Section 3, subsection C, has been changed to 3C, uppercase A, uppercase B, numeral 1 and numeral 2 have been deleted. Almost there, I think. Subsection 5 now starts subsection or section 5, subsection lowercase a, that's the addition. And then what was subsection 5 lowercase a is now subsection 5, lowercase b. Section 7 now starts with section 7, lowercase a. The lowercase a was not there previously. And then finally, section 12 begins with section 12a now and is followed by subsections 12, lowercase a, uppercase a, uppercase b.
What was the change there? Because it was already uppercase.
Those last two changes may have been unnecessary.
Yeah, I think,
yeah,
yeah,
it looked
I
like-
do.
it
I
looks
mean,
like
because
they-
it's like you're just substituting for,
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe red for black.
Yeah, but I looked at that a couple times. It did make me look a couple times. So maybe that's an attention.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good clarification. I think the only substantive, or not substantive, but
Is
the only
the-
change
is
is
A.
is the addition of subsection A, and those changes, just so it's clear as to why those changes were made. Those changes were made just to make our code read in a manner that is consistent with the legislation that was passed, I believe, in 2019. It was a little, without some of those subsections to break it up, it was unclear exactly how the code was intended to flow, but I think now it's consistent with the legislation.
And just so we have it on the record, the reason why we read it aloud is if there are changes between the ordinance, between the first reading and the second reading, there's a statute that says you don't have to start all over again with a first reading, so long as the changes are read into the record. So this is probably a very borderline issue because, as Will points out, it's not a change to the subject, it's just change to the numbering of the section headings. Out of abundance of caution, I thought it would probably be a good idea just to read them aloud.
Sweet.
So am I good to jump into the staff report now?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to make this relatively brief. We've had a work session on this. We've had a prior public hearing on this. So I just kind of want to just roll through the 4 or 5 changes that we are proposing, and then we can also have a discussion. I think there were some questions on the lighting ordinance, and we can kind of walk through some of that real quick. So first up, farm brewery. This is just codifying a use on EFU land that the state legislature has allowed. It's just making it clear in our code that farm breweries are an allowed use. It more or less is a direct kind of reflection of what the state legislation lays out in terms of what the requirements are. We haven't added any provisions making it more difficult. We've just kind of done the minimum that the state requires. Next up, after farm breweries, there's Exhibit C. Exhibit C makes some changes required by state legislation that applies to template dwellings in our forest zones. These changes define or clarify what the center of the tract is for purposes of measuring the 160 acre rectangle that you look at when you're determining whether or not there are a sufficient number of dwellings within that template. It also creates a look back date for determining whether or not a parcel was part of a tract. So historically, if somebody put a separate legal lot of record into an LLC, regardless of whether they owned adjacent properties, that was kind of considered a separate property. Now we look back to what the ownership was in 2019, and if it was all the same owners, then that's what we look at for determining whether a single dwelling already exists on the property. So you can no longer come in and kind of separate those properties into different LLCs and say they're owned by different legal entities, unless that occurred before this date in January 1, 2019. So if you separated them before then, great, but now we have to look at what the ownership status was in 2019. Moving on to Exhibit D. This is the beginning of a series of exhibits to this ordinance that apply to provisions that will implement the accessory dwelling unit standards into our code. We've discussed this a couple of times now, but just a quick overview. At this time, the Planning Commission's recommendation was to limit, and staff's as well, was to limit the implementation of ADUs to the Powell Butte area. So we have created a definition or a geographic kind of area where ADUs are allowed. The specific zones where they will be allowed include the R5, R10, and PBR 20 zones. Most of the standards that are proposed here are a reflection of what was included in the state legislation. There were some things we had to clarify though, because our goal, our high kind of staff's primary goal was to make sure this was a check the box kind of review. We didn't want to be creating land use decisions. So we've tried to make this review as straightforward as possible using clear and objective standards. So in some cases, the legislation was not clear and objective, and we've had to kind of go in and create those standards to make sure, one, we're consistent with state law, but two, to check the box review for staff. Specifically, there were requirements that I think the term the legislation used was adequate access. We had to make sure that's a pretty subjective term. I don't know what adequate access means to Commissioner Barney, but I may have a very different opinion about what adequate access means. So we had to clarify that. We've worked with the fire department. We've come up with some standards that we think will ensure that when somebody comes into the county for an ADU review, that staff will either receive the information or not receive the information. But if the information is received, it will be an easy review and sign off as far as those access issues go. There's also requirements that that there be safe evacuation routes and places for folks to go in the case of a wildfire. I believe if you look at page, I think it's page 159 of your packet, but 16 of 25 of the staff report, some of those provisions regarding adequate access, an evacuation plan, those are all kind of spelled out there. Again, at this time, we are recommending a 5-acre minimum. State law would allow the county to go as small as 2 acres to allow ADUs, but because of some of the uncertainty regarding transportation, wildfire, water, some of those issues, the thought is, let's see how this rolls out. Initially, it's much easier to add uses than to take them away. So instead of having problems crop up in the future, let's see how it works initially, and then we can add if we think it's appropriate in the future. So that's the ADU implementing ordinance in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions on that now or after the staff report. Next up are the lighting standards. There was conversation, and I'm just going to kind of jump down to where I recall the conversation going at the first public hearing. But I guess just in short, the lighting ordinance is being proposed to provide some regulations for residential, commercial, and public area outdoor lighting that will allow outdoor lighting, allow appropriate outdoor lighting, prevent light from shining onto adjacent properties right of way or the night sky, encourage energy conservation, enhance livability and nighttime enjoyment, establish guidelines for the installation and use of outdoor lighting, and further define lighting classified as a public nuisance. So that's the purpose of this lighting ordinance. The conversation a couple weeks ago focused on I apologize. I need to. Katie McDonald is busy with a site visit today on regarding a public hearing we have this afternoon with the Planning Commission. So my trusted partner when it comes to the lighting ordinance stuff isn't here to help me explain it. But let me just pull up this email real quick. So the conversation a couple weeks ago kind of focused on kind of the meaning of light trespass and whether or not we could effectively determine or explain to folks like, this is or is not light trespass. Seeing this light from across the valley isn't light trespass, but a neighbor's, bright light on their new light on the side of a barn that's, lighting up my whole front yard, that might be light trespass. But Katie and I had some conversations about this. I know we talked about maybe adding some language. I think there's a minor tweak we could do if the board is inclined to, but at the same time, I think the current definition of light trespass is, I think it gets us there. Like it says, light trespass means light emitted from a light fixture which falls beyond the property on which it is installed. So that definition is saying the light has to fall beyond the property. And I understand, Commissioner Crawford, I think your concern is, well, what does that mean, right? Does that mean just because I can see the light, it's falling on my property? And I don't think that's what that's saying. I think it's saying like the light literally has to be on your property. And if we're looking at this is going to come up in the compliance context, right? So somebody's going to come into community development and say, my neighbor's light's too bright, it's shining on my property. And let's say the neighbor they're complaining about is 4 houses away, quarter mile down the road, and they have a light that for whatever reasons upset this person enough to come into our office. We would have that conversation with them at that time and be like, is the light actually falling onto your property or is it just shining over there? Because if it's not actually illuminating your yard, that's not a violation.
Okay.
Right? So we're going to have discretion, right, as staff in terms of, are we going to actually initiate this code enforcement proceeding because of this lighting issue? Or, so we can say to them, I mean, there is a staff check in the process, right? It's not like somebody can just come in willy-nilly filing these complaints. I mean, they can file the complaints, but we're not going to take action if there's no light actually coming on to their property. Does that make sense?
I hear you, but you're an attorney. And so I guess just to your opinion, do you think that an attorney could turn that around and be able to come with a lawsuit to somebody or say that they haven't followed the rules or anything? That's all I'm concerned about, because common sense is great, but it's when you get into a neighbor fight and that common sense goes out the window and people are grasping at straws, and that's my only concern. And I respect your opinions, Will. So if you say that no, that's not something that an attorney could turn against a potential neighbor fight, then I'll buy it and I'll sign off. That's my only concern, is that somebody hires some obnoxious attorney.
Yeah. And I think that's a legitimate concern. But I also think if this is just a neighbor to neighbor dispute, the county's kind of saying, hey, we don't think there's a violation of our code. They could always, the neighbors could always get into some sort of private nuisance argument, and they might try to cite to our code and say this is why, but it's really not going to be on us. We have the discretion. If it's somebody threatening the county, we have the discretion to look at our code and say, no, that this isn't,
Okay.
we disagree with you. We're not going to take enforcement action on this.
Okay, perfect.
So that would be my response. I think it's a fair concern. This is a tough one to get the language just right, because you could really complicate it by getting into foot candles and all the stuff that most, I don't know what it means. I'm not going to expect folks reviewing the code. Some of them will obviously understand it, but a majority I don't think will understand what a foot candle is. And I don't know that we're doing anybody favors by incorporating some of that language into the definition when it may not be necessary.
I'm good.
Thank you. Any other questions on the lighting stuff?
No.
And I think the last, sure I didn't skip something. The last exhibit is Exhibit I. Oh, I take that back. Second to last exhibit regarding this code update is Exhibit I. This is the update to the Juniper Canyon purpose statement. This is just codifying past practice and clarifying that the intent is not to preclude all building permits from being issued in Juniper Canyon. We're not, it's just it really just clarifies, look, if you have a lawful use and you want to do a remodel, you want to add an accessory structure, that's fine. We're still, the restrictions on development are otherwise still in place in Juniper. So that's the purpose of that update. The final exhibit, Exhibit J, again, this is more of a minor tweak just to clarify how the section should be read. Exhibit J relates to transmission towers. It was staff's belief that when this was adopted initially, that there was an inadvertent subsection that was not created, so that the submittal requirements, it looked like the submittal requirements only applied to conditional use transmission towers, but it was staff's interpretation and belief that submittal requirements should apply to both transmission towers subject to standards and conditional use transmission towers. Just for clarity, some transmission towers, if they're over a certain height, are considered conditional uses. Under a certain height, they're not conditional uses, but they're still subject to standards. And the submission requirements, staff felt should apply to both, so that we're getting any necessary information to confirm that they are in fact meeting the standards that should apply to transmission tower. So just to clean up. So that's staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Fine.
Nope, I'm good. Thank
Susie?
you. Will.
Okay.
Yeah, great job, Will. We'll open a public hearing.
Have somebody.
Oh, really? Jacob?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Perfect. My name's Jacob Smith. I'm a, excuse me, citizen of Crook County. I was born in Prineville and lived here my entire life. I love the area. And I'm really happy. I want to put my support forward for these code amendments, but it's specifically the outdoor lighting. I think these can cause huge quality of life issues, both positive and negative. And I really appreciate the CDD and the community here coming together to get this passed. I do have a background in code enforcement. I've done approximately 17 years in Central Oregon here dealing with code enforcement, and have initiated a couple dark skies ordinance. While looking at this ordinance, specifically the exemptions found in 18-126-060, subsection A1 specifically. I think the wording in this it is a little ambiguous, and it would worry me slightly about the wording of neighbors and nuisance, again, specifically in that portion of code. I think it would be better to use a sunset ordinance clause on this, which would require people to become fully compliant within the lighting ordinance, regardless of when the light was installed or grandfathering issues. So I think that's a better position, because people that do have bad lighting that has been up for a long time would have the opportunity to submit it to code enforcement to get it taken care of. And then the vast majority of lighting that hasn't been upgraded or updated to match the newer code, more likely than not, in my experience, would only be subjected to the new standards if or forced to do the new standards if there was a complaint against them. I think the sunset period is one of the better ways to kind of balance people not being heavily burdened by having to change their lighting right away, but still gives people the opportunity to correct issues that might not be able to correct because of the grandfathering portion of this code. So just real quick, really appreciate it. Maybe there's some value in a sunset versus the current exemptions that are shown. And that is my comment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, we will end the public hearing.
Will, do you have a response on that?
So my understanding of how a sunset clause would work is it would basically say after 10 years, everybody has to be compliant. I may be misunderstanding Mr. Smith's recommendation, but that generally is my understanding of how the sunset clause would work. I would no, I don't have a strong pushback on that right now, but I do know that planning commission spent a lot of time looking at these exemptions. I know staff has spent a lot of time looking at these exemptions. I would be inclined to kind of stick with the wording we have right now. I think the one concern I would have about a sunset clause is at some point you are going to be saying to the public, you have to comply with this regardless of kind of how old your lighting is. I don't believe that was kind of ever really the intent. I think we want to certainly capture new development and make sure these lighting standards are adhered to, which over the long term will be a significant benefit to the county, but I don't know that we want to burden everybody at a date certain with having to instantly be compliant. So that would be
Yeah,
my
I
concern
agree.
based on
Well,
my understanding of
thank
how
you.
that would work.
And that was one of my things to Katie was, if I build a barn, do I have to replace all the, and that would kind of put that into that
But
category.
yeah, eventually, whenever.
So,
that's-
yeah. Okay,
Cool.
okay.
All right. Anything else before we go ahead? I entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 344, an ordinance amending Title 18 of the Crook County Code, adopting additional procedural clarity, streamlining application processes, and expanding options for local residents and declaring an emergency. Now, that is the best motion I think I've ever made.
Yeah. Second.
You better.
Any discussion?
I haven't voted yet. I
What's
just
the-
want to
I-
vote today.
Was this one I don't want to discuss it?
No, I'm good. That motion was just, I
All-
just was.
All those in
amazed.
favor?
Aye,
Aye.
finally, I get to.
Thank you, Will. I know that was a lot of work.
No,
And
thank
Katie
you.
as well, if you're out
Yeah,
there
no,
somewhere
thank
listening. I doubt it, but
Katie, who, yeah, she put a lot of work into it.
maybe she.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Everything on the administrator's report?
Nothing for me today. Thank you.
Okay, on commissioner updates, I've been, Susie had a great meeting, it sounds like, with the, folks from DEQ. They came through and had a little conversation with some of the neighbors that are having some of these water issues. I followed up with, the person who's in charge of that project, and the explanation I've received from her is that they're waiting on funding from the state, or the feds. And they say that there may be funding in about a year and a half from the feds. But then that would put another year on top of that to get the project done. And that's not acceptable. So I think it's really important that as a body here, we send a letter saying, Governor, this is super important. Merkley Wyden, this is very important. Let's put a speed on this, even if we can just get. I talked to the lady at DEQ, if they even get a little bit of funding, they can at least start the preliminary steps of that in getting ready for that funding to come in. And so I think we kind of work on something like that. I know I've talked to Vicky Brees-Iverson, Representative Vicky Brees-Iverson. She's also interested in pushing back to at her level to say we need funding for this. So I think we can maybe do a joint letter with her and get something rolling. I just wanted to bring it up here, put something together to be approved next week. Are people comfortable with that?
What's funny about this whole thing is when it came up, and I'm gonna say January or whatever, they were working on funding. And they were, this has been a long process. And at one time I was told the funding was there. The biggest thing is that these people need help. So, if a letter will help, I'm for it. So I have no objections to that. And I
No,
do know Wyden and Merkley are on the same page as far as trying to get funding. So, no, I have no problems.
Okay. Will you help me with that letter? Just so we make sure we're,
Do we need a motion to do this letter, or how does that work?
I think you need a motion to approve the letter if it's gonna come from the entire panel.
But we need to see the letter first
Right.
before we go there.
And I
Okay.
don't think, no, I don't think you need a motion, just to have a draft prepared.
do we have to have a motion today to decide next week?
You can add it to the agenda for next week, but I don't think you need a motion to, say we're adding it.
But we can just say at this meeting that we plan on making a decision on this.
We don't have a meeting next week,
no.
according to our secretary. We need to listen to Sarah.
Can we make a motion to have, we'll help draft that letter and then each of us review it and sign it out of court?
Yeah, good question. The trick there is that there's the risk that if there are a lot of feedback and back and forth, that amounts to a serial meeting. So I think the safer course of action would be either to have it approved at a meeting or to simply delegate authority to someone to draft a letter and send it out under the name of the county.
Okay. I'm fine doing it. Are you guys okay with?
I'm fine doing
I'm fine.
Okay.
So,
So we'll meet this week and. Yeah, okay, perfect.
but now are we talking about that we should have made a motion to draft a letter and send it out on behalf of the county? That was your last statement.
So
Is that what you would like us to do as procedural?
I'm agnostic. What I think I heard was that there was interest in delegating authority to Judge Crawford to prepare a letter to be signed by Judge Crawford, but on behalf of the entire board. Is that correct?
Yes.
So moved, or yes, so moved if that was, we need it.
Brian,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I voting aye last. Okay.
Is that like an iPhone?
Yeah. Yeah. I decided I've been too excited.
Is it eyelash?
I had something that I wanted to add to this commissioner's report, but I don't know what it is. Must have not been that important.
Okay, last chance for public comment. Great. You want to go with me on our trip, Kevin? Or sorry, Steve? Do you want to show me around up there?
I can make, I'll join you, yeah.
All right, let's just, yeah, is your phone number on here? Just leave your phone number somewhere. And I'll give you a call. And
I'll give it to you. You want it now?
you want it on the public record?
I actually have, I'm.
You got it, you got his
pretty
number?
sure
Okay,
I-
I'll get it from her and
We should-
I'll call you and we'll set something up in the next
Yeah,
couple of weeks.
because you don't want it on public record. I'm sure that I have you in here. Let me make sure, but yes.
Hey Brad, what's your number?
Yes, you're right here. Okay. I got you. I'll just share the contact with Seth.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming. Okay, we're now gonna go into the executive session. Board of County Commissioners will now meet in executive session under ORS 1926602H. The purpose of consulting with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of the news meters our designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report any deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general substance of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, return to open session, and welcome the audience back in the room. The Crook County Board of Commissioners will now leave executive session under ORS 1926602H. The purpose of consulting with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report any deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, return to open session, welcome the audience back into the room.
All right, so commissioners, on the first 2H item, we already had the motion about the letter, in open session. I guess, standard motion to direct staff to proceed as discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 For the second 2H item, I would recommend a motion to authorize Commissioner Barney to sign the mediation agreement.
I guess I better move that, huh? You can't do that for your own self. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And another motion on that topic to authorize Commissioner Barney to act on behalf of Crook County under the parameters discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioners, for the third topic, number 2H, based on the conversation among the Board of Commissioners, I would recommend a motion to approve the professional services contract with Meany Parks and Shell Oregon Inc.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The fourth motion I would suggest then is a motion to appoint Will Van Vactor as interim county manager.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Look at all those motions I just made. I am really empowered today.
Does anybody mind if we adjourn the meeting?
Oh, no. I wanted to go on.
You guys